Hey everyone, Brayden here coming to you with a breaking Disney news update. This is going to be a very special video because usually I type these things out in advance, what I'm going to say. This one is completely unscripted. It's just going to be stream of consciousness from my brain right to your computer screen. Not only are we going to talk about the news item here and some stuff that I've been hearing from sources in relation to that, but also I'm going to speak more broadly about why I think things are the way that they are at the parks right now. And not even just the parks, just Disney in general. People have noticed that the product in all areas of the company has become noticeably cheap as of late. Why is that? What is actually going on? I've been taking a look at Disney's balance sheet, and I think I've discovered some stuff where it's like, oh, that's probably where the money's going. Wow, we got a lot of issues here. So we'll get to all that. First off, the breaking news at this hour, over in the World Showcase Lagoon, there's a Harmonious barge on fire, say all the news sites. Now, this is a little over the top because when you think Harmonious barge, you think of one of those glorious oil rigs we have in the middle of the World Showcase Lagoon as part of Harmonious. Now, a barge did catch fire last night, but it was one of these smaller barges, the little firework barges they put out there, which are much smaller, much cheaper, much easier to maintain, built for this kind of thing. Disney released a statement where they said, yeah, we quickly got it extinguished. From certain angles around the World Showcase Lagoon where guests were filming the fire, it looked as though that it was coming off of the center barge or one of the screen barges, but that was not the case. It was just this little firework barge, not one of the oil rigs, so that was what was going on there. Now, it is a little interesting because this is actually the second incident of this nature we've had in a very short time span here. A few weeks ago, I believe it was, a banister caught fire above the America Gardens Theater after Harmonious. So this has been happening pretty frequently as of late. This is the second incident we've had of this nature in a very short time span. It's kind of like the christening of a boat or the maiden voyage of a boat where something goes wrong and they say it's cursed. Kind of seems like the same could be applied to Harmonious right now. It's not on its maiden voyage, but you get what I mean, you know, where there's like these omens going on. And it was so interesting at the D23 Expo, we heard that they're going to be doing away with Harmonious. I was really not expecting to hear this, knowing how much Harmonious cost.
An all-new nighttime spectacular for Epcot during the 100th anniversary celebration. Brand new show, and this show is in development right now, and it will debut later next year, continuing that park's legacy.
Disney really sunk a lot of effort into this where they really thought that it was going to be the big thing. I think that they even nerfed Epcot Forever and tried to make it sort of lame just so that this would really wow us, this Harmonious thing. So we heard at the D23 Expo that next year, as part of the 100-year anniversary of the Walt Disney Company, they're going to be doing a different show in the Epcot Lagoon. And by the way, that's just a selling point, right? The reason why they're doing a different show in the Epcot Lagoon is because Harmonious has not been received too well. There's a lot of people that do like the show, but obviously if it was a great show that everyone loved, they wouldn't be replacing it so soon. So there's obviously a real reason that they're replacing it that isn't about an anniversary. Now, you've probably never really thought about this. I'm sure some of you had, but why does Disney even do nighttime shows? You know, we always talk about Bob Chapek and, oh, Disney's so cheap these days. Why do they even do fireworks, right? They don't make any money directly off of that. I mean, there's a dessert party that they have for the Magic Kingdom one. There's, you know, dining packages, things like this. But for the most part, the fireworks aren't directly making money. You know, you think the way the company is now, everything is itemized. You know, Disney is one of the largest purchasers of gunpowder in the United States. They spend so much money doing these fireworks shows every night. Why do it if it's not something that they're getting direct ROI off of? What's the point of these fireworks shows? There's a reason in particular, especially looking at Epcot, why the nighttime show is so important. And that is, if you have a really good nighttime show in the middle of the World Showcase Lagoon in Epcot, and it plays, the show starts when the park is closing, what that means is that you will get all the guests, or ideally most of the guests, to stay the entire night, all the way until park close, which means you're maximizing the amount of guests that are in the park till close, which means you're maximizing the amount of money that guests are spending on the food booths, on the merchandise booths, on all the things to spend money on around the World Showcase Lagoon. The idea is you tack on this nighttime show at the end of the night, which keeps guests in the park until the end of the night. And this is a big deal, especially in Epcot, Because in the Magic Kingdom, guests normally want to stay till the end of the night no matter what. Now, you could say if they didn't have a fireworks show at night, maybe guests wouldn't stay as long, but there's so much to do in the Magic Kingdom, guests naturally want to maximize their day. In Epcot, it's mostly about food and merchandise. So, once it gets dark, a lot of guests are like, maybe we'll go over to Disney Springs, or maybe we'll just turn in for the night. You really need a knock your socks off nighttime spectacular to keep guests till the end of the night. So that's why the fireworks show in Epcot is so important, and that's the purpose that Illuminations served very successfully for what, 20 years? I mean, that show ran a pretty long time. So when I saw Disney announce at the D23 Expo, we're getting rid of Harmonious, something they spent a lot of money on, tens of millions, hundreds of millions on this project. You see the oil rigs out there. It's very impressive technology, but it's like, wow, if they're replacing this already, that means that the show is not keeping guests till the end of the night. And that's the reason why Disney would change their fireworks show. Not because the fans online are mad that it's not Illuminations like myself, not because fans online say that, the show doesn't have enough heart. What this is all indicative of is that the regular guest is not staying till the end of the night as they were when we had Illuminations, the show which Disney just totally demolished and probably didn't need to. Like, why mess with perfection? You know what I mean? And that's what really bothers me on a personal level about them getting rid of Illuminations. Illuminations was an amazing nighttime spectacular, and I know the rationale behind Disney getting rid of it. Think about it. So if the goal of a nighttime spectacular in Epcot is to keep guests buying stuff from the food booths till the very end of the night, what can we do to both attract more guests to the park and also have more guests stay till the end of the night? Well, Bob Chapek clearly thought, what if we put a bunch of intellectual properties in the middle of the World Showcase Lagoon, right? Illuminations is already doing a very good job of keeping guests till the end of the night. Imagine if instead of a bunch of random, it's like a globe in the middle and these torches, imagine if we utilized all of our characters that our guests know and love and put all those in the middle of the World Showcase Lagoon. That would be amazing. Then we'd really keep guests till the end of the night, and it would be a new draw to get people into the parks, get them sucked into spending money on the food booths and the merchandise and all of this. Well, clearly that did not work. And this is just a rumor, okay? But I have heard that Harmonious has performed worse in terms of keeping guests till the end of the night than the temporary Epcot Forever show. And I think this is all just like a very satisfactory moment for me, because I know there's a lot of people out there that like Harmonious, and personally, I have nothing against Harmonious itself. I don't think it's the best. I don't think it's the worst. I think the technology is very impressive. I know people who worked on the show. I know technicians that work on this all the time, and it feeds their families. So I don't have anything personally against Harmonious on that level, but I think Illuminations was like the best Disney fireworks show. And there were some criticisms with Illuminations that were absolutely valid. People say the middle of it was kind of boring. People say that the screens were hard to see on the globe. Really, all Disney needed to do there was just update the technology that you had with Illuminations. A lot of the tech that they were using for Illuminations was running Windows 95. Just update the operating system, update the computers, update the infrastructure, make a bigger globe, right? Like, this stuff wasn't very difficult. But because they were going to go in and invest money, they decided, no, we have to do something completely different. And what we ended up getting were these giant barges in the middle of the World Showcase Lagoon, which are immovable. And they just sit out there all day, and they totally mess with the vibe. They totally mess with the sight lines. And this also hurts food sales and merchandise sales, obviously, because if it's not fun to walk around the World Showcase Lagoon and sightsee because there's giant oil rigs in the way, that's not good for Disney's bottom line. So really what I'm trying to get across here is, I don't even think it's like the complaints that us, the fans, had with this show or anything like that. I think the impetus for them changing it is that the bean counters don't like it. They're looking at this and saying, wow, this is actually losing us money, and it's costing us a lot of money. I mean, look at those barges you have in the middle of the World Showcase Lagoon. Maintenance-wise, holy cow, can you even imagine? So I've heard, again, this is just rumor, I've heard from my sources that Disney's written off these barges. Disney's going to be getting rid of these barges. They're going to be dismantling them, and they're going to be out of here. So while the Harmonious barges did not catch on fire today, that news story is a little bit of fake news. That does not mean that they will not be going by the wayside soon. I believe that they will be. I believe that all of these barges are going to go by the wayside. I think that Disney needs to consider that the reason Illuminations was so good at keeping guests till the end of the night and Harmonious wasn't is because Illuminations it was not what you would expect, right? Like people would be walking out of a restaurant and they say, what's that? And there would be that fire barge and there was this awesome music. I mean, the Illuminations music, like that's like some of the best theme park music that's ever been made. That is as good as it gets. They were using that music at the Super Bowl. Gavin Greenaway music, like we're talking about the best of the best here. You know, they replaced all that. I think the reason that Illuminations was very successful and Harmonious wasn't is because it turns out that what guests expect for a nighttime show is something that is just gonna wow them. And I think that the what the heck factor with Illuminations actually helped. You know, there's sort of like a mystique to the show. It wasn't what you'd expect from Disney. And I think that added to its notoriety and why people loved it so much. I think that Disney is falling victim to this whole intellectual property synergy thing where they think, oh, Happily Ever After worked in Magic Kingdom where we just did a clip show of a bunch of intellectual properties. Let's just do that again with Enchantment. Let's just do that again with Harmonious. Let's just do that again with everything. And I think they're sort of missing the idea that there was something special with Happily Ever After itself. There was something special with that show. Just trying to duplicate it and switch out the properties to the newest ones that are on Disney Plus or whatever, like that's not what makes for a good show. What makes for a good show is something that people like and they're gonna go home and tell their friends about. And I really think that what was special about Epcot was that it wasn't what you'd expect from Disney, and that left an impression on people where they're like, wow, this is really cool. So there's that word of mouth factor going on, but instead of enhancing what they already had, which was working so well, they went on this wild goose chase of intellectual property. A lot of people theorized Chapek saw this as a merchandising opportunity or something like that. And we have seen some Harmonious merch float around. And I think a lot of it ended up at the Disney Character Warehouse outlet. So that's the deal with the nighttime shows. I just thought that was very interesting. You know, you're kind of thinking like, why does Disney even do the fireworks shows? Like what's actually the idea there? You know, Disney has everything itemized, everything calculated to the nth degree. When I say Disney, don't think of like a bunch of creatives. Think of an Excel spreadsheet, because that's really what motivates, that's what animates the company, is the Excel spreadsheet. They have it priced out. Okay, this is how much money we're gonna put into the Harmonious barges. This is how much the Harmonious show costs us per guest per night. And if those guests aren't staying till the end of the night, or they're there and they're not spending money on food and merchandise, it's a fail. So Disney has to get people to buy food and merchandise, stay till the end of the night, be compelled by the fireworks show. And if it's not working, it doesn't matter if Disney sunk 60, 80, $200 million into the fireworks show. It has to go. Write it off. We have to get something else in here. If it's not working, it's not working. And I think how much investment and activity and interest Disney's taken in the World Showcase Lagoon, the show that's out there over the last few years, compared to, you know, how little interest Disney has in the Future World area of Epcot, really goes to show how integral that nighttime show in Epcot is to the business model of the entire park. Keeping guests till the end of the night, spending money on food and merchandise, it is a big, big deal. So that's what's going on with the nighttime show stuff in Epcot. I also want to talk about just kind of why everything, or at least a lot of what Disney's put out lately, seems cheap. I feel like this has been a trend since around 2019. Let me know what you guys think. I'm not even just talking about the parks, just like really any product Disney puts out. Most of them, there are a few exceptions, but a lot of them, it just seems cheap. The Disney Plus content, you know, Marvel, whatever, a lot of stuff like the CGI people have remarked on is not very good, or the writing, you know, it seems like a lot of stuff is sort of slap job together. And it sort of goes back to what I was saying about the Excel spreadsheet. At one point, this was a creative first company, and creative was Walt. And he would be like, hey, Roy, hey, Mr. Excel spreadsheet, we're gonna make this happen, man. We're gonna do this, you figure it out. And now it's really the opposite, right? It's the Excel spreadsheet saying, we need a film to come out on November 23rd, 2024. And then Disney sends that off and says, okay, hey, creatives, you guys have to come up with something. We need something for this slot on November 23rd, 2024. So it's not like there was some creative inspiration where someone had this really great idea and then Disney's like, yeah, let's fund that project. It's really more like, we need something done on this date. Please make it now. It's like an on-demand, like please make content now. And that's why the content seems very formulaic. There's a lot of corners cut. Some of these Disney Plus shows, I've heard the complaint that like each episode seems like a different show, like a different idea, like a totally different concept for a different show. I think there's just a lot of that going on because you just don't have that creative cohesion because Disney's not promoting that. This is not a creative first organization, and look no further than the CEO in that regard. I don't think Bob Chapek would admit to being a super creative guy. So that's kind of interesting. And I've noticed recently someone commented on my Address Unknown video, my latest documentary over there. I think it's almost at 200,000 views. Thank you guys so much, by the way. Someone was saying, I just rediscovered your channel. I unsubscribed from you after I realized that you were like a Bob Chapek defender or something like that, which is funny that people think of me that way. I've always tried to establish that I don't hate Bob Chapek, because a lot of people want to put me in that camp with the people that are always dogging on Bob Chapek. I just always kind of sympathized a little bit with Bob Chapek's position, just by virtue of the fact that people really don't give his predecessor, Bob Iger, a lot of flack. And I feel like he deserves way more flack than he gets, because Bob Iger, what he basically did effectively, this is figurative obviously, he set the house on fire and then he walked out. He just walked away. That's really kind of what he did, because Iger made that deal with Rupert Murdoch for 20th Century Fox. And Comcast was just messing with Disney and basically getting Disney to raise their price that they were willing to spend for this Fox acquisition. Disney acquires Fox for this insane figure. And what have we gotten since? Disney's owned Fox for a while now, for like 3 years now. What have we gotten out of it? Disney's barely utilized any of their Fox stuff. They really haven't taken advantage of it to any great extent. So they bought all these properties, they spent an enormous sum of money, and we really didn't seem to get a whole lot out of it. And furthermore, when they did that Fox acquisition, it pumped the stock, obviously, because now the company has more assets. This, of course, was great for the executives who own a lot of shares of the company. They were able to sell those for a nice profit. But what actually happened, if you look at Disney's balance sheet at the start of 2019, when the deal went through, it wasn't just Disney's overall value that went up. A big chunk of the company became debt. If you look at Disney's balance sheet in 2019, the debt is basically the same as what the entire company was worth in 2018, which is just insane to think about. So we had this enormous uptick in debt that was on Disney's books that they were forced to service. And then the events of 2020 unfold, and basically Disney loses all their cash flow from the parks. Iger says, here you go, Chapek, you deal with it. Iger steps down from the CEO spot, and now Chapek is the one holding the bag with this $50 billion of debt that Disney has. And I think that this debt that Disney's been servicing, and they have been servicing it quite aggressively. I believe now it's down to like 46 as of this past June on Disney's balance sheet. So Disney has been paying down this debt. I suspect that's where all the money is going. Where before this Fox acquisition, which I think was a huge mistake and Disney definitely didn't need to do, and I don't think that the intentions for it were very good. I think it was a lot about pumping the stock. That's just my personal take there. I think that Disney would have been in a much better position for the events of 2020. I think that capital expenditure would not have been cut at the parks to the degree that it ended up being cut. Even while the parks were closed, I think Disney still would have had the money to continue all the construction projects like Universal did. Universal built Velocicoaster in record time while a lot of parks were closed around the world. And meanwhile at Disney, it was just like, oh, we're not doing anything. We're not investing anything. And that's because Disney was stuck servicing this debt. And you see when the events of 2020 started to unfold, Disney borrowed a bunch of cash. They increased their cash position, which also increased their debt. But they had to do that just to try to, maintain some liquidity, because Disney constantly has all this money that has to go outbound to service this debt. And meanwhile, there was not much coming in. So I think that really goes to explain where a lot of the money is going, because you look at the Disney company and the parks are doing great. They're bringing in tons of revenue right now. And it's like, where's that all going? I've been saying for a long time the focus is on Disney Plus, which it definitely is. But even that content, it doesn't seem like, oh, wow, they spent a lot of money on this. And meanwhile, some people would say, oh, maybe it's going to the shareholders, but it's not. The company doesn't have a dividend right now, so the shareholders aren't getting paid with the profits. So where's the money going? I think it's going towards this debt that Disney is servicing, and I think that really goes to explain Disney's lack of interest in capital expenditure. And maybe I'm giving Bob Chapek too much credit. A lot of people accuse me of that. But I feel like when Chapek is asked about, Mary Poppins and Epcot and things like that, it seems like he's kind of like, well, I want to put money towards the parks, but maybe in the future that'll be possible. It kind of seems like he's saying to us like, hey man, we got bigger worries than Mary Poppins. We have all this debt that we're servicing. Money has to go elsewhere. We don't have money to invest in the parks. Because you think a numbers guy like Bob Chapek, he would be well aware of the virtue in spending money on new products at the parks. Constantly reinvesting in the parks and opening new things drives more attendance. It keeps people talking about Disney. There's more hype. There's more to talk about. It's good in many regards. And guests, especially right now, they expect more capital investment at these parks. and Universal is delivering. We just did an update video on what's going on with Epic Universe. So there are other companies that are looking to big time serve this need in the 2020s of new stuff, new theme park stuff to check out. But Disney does not seem like they're up to the task. And there does seem to be a lot of creative incompetence at the Walt Disney Company currently at the parks, where we're seeing these projects. They either don't make sense or they end up falling through because there's not enough money anymore, which is more of a financial Chapek problem. But it really seems from all angles. It seems from the ideas themselves to the funding of the ideas. It's just a total mess. And I think that the overall word that we would call it is cheap. It just seems cheap lately. And for the prices that Disney's charging, nobody should be calling Disney's hotel renovations cheap. Yet they are. Yet Disney's going to charge you a ton of money for those, and people for some reason pay it. So I guess it is what it is. You know, as I said in the last video, until people start not paying Disney and just not paying for this stuff, no one's going to clean house. No one's going to go in and say, okay, Disney, we have to figure some stuff out. You know, they're just going to keep going on their merry way until it stops working, until the formula breaks. So just think about that, you know, next time you're going to spend a lot of money on Disney, whatever, you might want to think about that a little harder, because I definitely think that is part of the problem right now, where a lot of people who are just, you know, just genuine Disney fans, they're sort of just enablers right now, myself included. I pay for an annual pass, but that's definitely something to be thinking about here as we move forward, where hopefully in the future we'll see capital expenditure increase again at the parks. But for the time being, that is not what is happening, which is very, very sad. But hopefully my musings today have given you some additional insight into why things are the way they are at the parks right now. I think it's very interesting, that balance sheet, when you look at that, how much debt Disney incurred on that 2019 balance sheet. Because if you were just watching TV, you'd think, oh, Bob Chapek is why everything's cheap at the parks now. Oh, it's because of the events of 2020 or why the parks are the way that they are right now. No. The thing that actually caused everything up until now, it preceded Chapek becoming CEO by a year. It preceded the events of 2020 by a year. The real catalyst, in my opinion, for all the problems we have now was baked into the cake a year earlier with Iger's acquisition of Fox. I think that was a big one that has been hurting the company ever since, that Chapek has been left to deal with. And I think that has also been something that has severely limited Disney's ability to invest in everything from the content machine at Disney Plus, which constantly needs more money, and the parks, which could definitely use some greater investment, some new drives to get more guests to come to the parks, because these made-up anniversaries, these sort of arbitrary anniversaries, you can paint the castle any color you want. People want new rides. So unless you can give that to them, you're going to have a problem. And I noticed that a lot of the shills out there aren't being super honest with themselves. They say, Brayden, there is new stuff coming to the parks. We just got Guardians. We're about to get Tron. But see, I think about it in terms of like a 5-year time horizon, because we've seen how long it takes Disney to make stuff. You know, they were developing the Guardians attraction, like doing the planning for it back in 2015, right? And when did it open? Just think about that. So if Disney invested today in a new land, a new ride, we'd be getting it 4 years from now. We'd be getting it in 2026. We'd be getting it after Epic Universe opens. But that investment isn't happening right now, which means we're talking even later. So at a minimum, the next time we get a Galaxy's Edge style land, it's going to be the end of the 2020s or the 2030s. That's already where we're at. So when people are like, oh, we have stuff coming up like Tron, after that, it's just nothing. It's just nothingness for years, unless you call an update to Splash Mountain where they rip out a bunch of animatronics and put in projection, a new attraction. It's really not a new attraction. It's a redo of an existing attraction where they're basically just updating it cosmetically. So hopefully I've given you guys some stuff to ponder on there. Hopefully that made sense. I thought it'd just be fun to just sort of do, you know, sort of like a stream of consciousness video. There is definitely a lot happening right now, a lot that will decide the future of this company and the industry. And it really seems like Disney is not really totally there, totally, you know, hitting the ball out of the park like Universal seems to be doing right now with Epic Universe. But it is the way it is. And definitely there's something up at Disney where who knows where the money's going. It's not going to the shareholders, no dividend. The stock has been performing terrible lately. It's not going towards Disney Plus. The CGI looks really bad. Where's the money going? Where's the money going? It's so bizarre, you know? We're all spending money at the parks. Where's it going? Hey, Chapek, where's the money going? Seriously, where is it? Where did the money go? Did it all go to your house in Palm Beach or something? Whatever. So that's the latest in terms of what's happening at the Walt Disney Company. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to subscribe with those notifications on for more like this in the future. Thank you guys so much for watching. From the Mickey V's Magic Studio, this is Brayden. I'll talk to you soon. Have a magical day.